Hola a todos, muy buenos días. Muchas gracias de nuevo por unirse con este equipo que los quiere tanto y que siempre espera que nos acompañen. Vamos a ir empezando, vamos a ir haciendo la presentación. Recuerden que va a quedar grabado y todos van a poder compartir todo lo que vamos a hablar en esta pequeña presentación. Vamos a dar un poquito de noticias nuevas, de lo que se está hablando, de lo que se está viviendo en Australia. Y por eso tenemos dos grandes invitados. Una es Amanda, que muchos incluso ya la conocen, y vamos a estar también con Lucas, director de Sydney. Recuerden poner siempre sus preguntas en el cuadrito de Q&A de preguntas y respuestas, no en el chat, para que podamos verlos todos dentro del mismo chat y podamos ayudarles a responder. Vamos a estar haciendo traducción, así que no se vayan a preocupar. Vamos a estar intercalando un poquito en Spanglish y obviamente poder resolver todas esas inquietudes que van teniendo hoy. Entonces, pues sin más, le quiero dar la bienvenida a Lucas y Amanda para que por favor puedan comenzar a contarnos un poquito de estas nuevas noticias y esto bueno. Bienvenidos.
Gracias, Kathy, and welcome everyone. Buenos dias a todos. My name is Lucas Giusoli. I'm the ILSC Sydney director. I'm also a part of the English Australia Board of Directors and the delegate state for New South Wales. So I'm happy to meet with all of you today, share some of the news around Australia, some of the initiatives that our government is working, and share a little bit of our current context with you guys today. Looking at that current context, and our first slide, Amanda. Thank you. So where are we at this stage in Australia? So I think firstly, very important is to remember that we have had a very well-controlled COVID-19 situation. We know how devastating the situation has been worldwide, and it has proven how well positioned the Australian government is in controlling situations like this and how safe this country is. Currently, New South Wales, so two states in Australia, New South Wales, where Sydney is, and Victoria, where Melbourne School is, are in lockdown, and that means that we are staying at home for most of the time, and our classes are being delivered online. This is temporary, and we expect this to be lifted in a few weeks in New South Wales and a few more weeks in Victoria as well. During this time, amongst other things, the government is giving support to our international students, including financial support for students and for those on student visas or any other sorts of visa there as well. So again, the government showing good initiatives in trying to help the students who are affected by this current lockdown and the current situation. Looking at the vaccination rates that we have right now, very high rates. Amanda's going to talk a little bit more about this, and that is leading to good news. Some of the good news we'll be sharing today with you, and that's thanks mostly to the high levels of vaccination rates that we have right now, people going and getting the first jabs, and we're expecting everyone to be, we expect we'll be getting to the 80% of fully vaccinated people very soon. Unfortunately, what we have seen are some schools, English schools, that have closed down or who are in hibernations. So that means schools that are not operating for now and planning to come back once borders are open. Luckily, ILSC is not one of them, and we have managed really well throughout this pandemic, and still servicing all of our students really well at all states, at all 4 schools that we have open in Australia. There are a lot of initiatives right now to bring international students back. Again, obviously, just like every other country in the world, the priority is on safety and the priority on safety of the country. So obviously the government is making sure that all the decisions they make are well considered and all the initiatives are well planned. Right? But we do see, and we're going to share some of them with you today, some very positive movements towards bringing international students back and opening the gradual opening of borders in our international borders here in Australia. And the market is showing that. So we can see the optimism in the market. A big flag post for us is Qantas. And we saw that a couple of weeks ago, Qantas announcing that they will restate international flights and will start getting people flying back into Australia. And again, that's a good thermometer for us as to where things are going.
Hola a todos, aquí hacemos entonces nuestra primera pausa agradeciendo a Lucas que desde Sydney se está conectando para tener este webinar con nosotros. Entonces, mientras comenzamos a traducir, vamos a compartir nuestra primera encuesta. Ya saben que nos gusta por ahí mantenerlos activos y aparte conocer un poco más acerca de la situación de nuestros agentes. Va a comenzar a aparecer una primera encuesta en sus pantallas para que por favor nos apoyen a responderla. Mientras les cuento que lo que nos ha comentado nuestro director de Sydney es acerca de cómo está controlada la situación de COVID-19 en Australia. Más adelante, nuestra querida Amanda también va a hablar más a detalle de esto. Actualmente, algunas ciudades se encuentran en cuarentena temporal, sin embargo, se ha visto acciones que ha tomado el gobierno para apoyar a los estudiantes internacionales. Otra cosa positiva es la alta tasa de vacunación y a pesar de que algunas escuelas han estado cerrando o digamos hibernando, esperando esta apertura para volver a comenzar a operar, este no ha sido el caso realmente de ILSC. Afortunadamente tenemos también noticias que compartirles acerca de las iniciativas del gobierno y de la iniciativa privada que se han tomado en cuenta para atraer visitantes internacionales, incluyendo la industria de la educación. Entonces, este webinar lo que queremos es compartirles acerca del escenario actual, que si bien ha sido retador estos últimos meses, sin embargo, lo vemos ya como algo positivo que está por venir y que más adelante vamos a hablar más específico de ello.
Fantastic, thank you. Now, I've got some of the results there. Well, quite varied. I won't bore you with all the numbers here, don't panic. But we did want to share with you guys is a strong position for Colombia in the last years. And I know it's not news to any of you, but just a reminder as to how much Colombia has been growing in these last years, taking number 2 position in volume in the medical sector, and highlighting here in 2020, along with Nepal, Colombia and Nepal were the only countries to actually show growth within those years, but nearly 8% of growth for Colombia, which was fantastic and something that no one expected to see. So this proves the strength that this country has and this market has for the Australia market here.
Y esto es muy importante porque es una tabla donde habla acerca de los mercados principales en el sector de hélicos en Australia. Entonces podemos ver cómo el sector de Colombia, el mercado colombiano realmente está en el número 2 y en el 2020 Colombia y Nepal fueron en realidad los únicos mercados que mostraron un crecimiento positivo. Entonces creo que esto también nos habla de unas buenas noticias y que estamos realmente en el lugar indicado.
So what's on the news, and that's part of what we wanted to share with you guys, and I see some of the comments in the chat box as well. Some part of why you're excited to be here. So we have our Prime Minister confirming that by Christmas, we want to have those overseas travels and the borders open again. So 80% vaccination rate is the target that has been stipulated by the national government. Again, Amanda is going to talk a little bit more about this in more detail, but what that means effectively is that we expect to see borders opening still this year, international borders for Australia, and we'll be welcoming family, we'll be welcoming international travelers, and obviously we'll be welcoming those international students there. And it was also good to see during his speech, the Prime Minister addressing international students and stating that we expect to be welcoming back students as well. So that's a very positive for our industry and for us, and obviously for all of you.
Sabemos que todos hemos estado buscando noticias acerca de cuándo va a ser la apertura de Australia, y esto es lo que hemos encontrado y lo que hay realmente en las noticias. El primer ministro anunció que para Navidad es donde se van a recibir visitantes internacionales en Australia. Se tiene la meta de un 80% de vacunas, se ha ido avanzando rápidamente hasta esta meta, es por eso que se espera que para Navidad los visitantes puedan volver. Y de la misma manera se espera que sea pronto, cuando los estudiantes internacionales sea cuestión que puedan ingresar realmente.
And now more specifically here in New South Wales and also in South Australia, we've got two pilot programs for international student arrivals. Now that the program for New South Wales more specifically, you have 250 students coming every fortnight, so every 2 weeks. But again, more important than the actual number of students who are coming is the importance that international students have for this government, and especially New South Wales as well. The Treasurer, and I'll share with you a few words later, has highlighted how important that is for the economy here, and the priority that will be placed on this. So we have this pilot program running here in New South Wales, Sydney, as well as in South Australia, so for our Adelaide school, and that's starting. That has been approved at both states and will commence very soon.
Y una de las acciones que se están tomando son estos programas piloto en específico en New South Wales y South Australia, donde se encuentra nuestro campus de Adelaide. Y es acerca de los programas de atraer estudiantes internacionales y bajo qué términos van a llegar estos estudiantes. Entonces, hay noticias positivas, esperamos tener más detalles más adelante.
I'll just note Fred's question. Fred Herrera, thank you for the question. I'll address this question right now because it's asking if students who haven't got the TGA approved vaccines, what will happen and whether they'll be authorized to come. For the pilot programs, as of it is now, no, they're not. Only students who have one of the vaccines approved by the Australian TGA. What will happen later on, we still don't know, and we still don't know what the government guidelines will be. Part of what I want to talk about this slide here as well is that apart from the student pilot program, we also have in New South Wales the pilot program for home quarantine, and as well as in South Australia. So what that means as well is that the government is studying different opportunities, different possibilities for students and international travelers, not only students, when they come into the country, rather than spending 14 days at a hotel quarantine, they're studying or they're trialing different strategies now, including home quarantine of 7 days with extra care, vaccinated people, tracing via apps, and a number of different measures there. And as I mentioned before, just looking at this comment here in the middle from the New South Wales Treasurer, Dominic Perrott. Very good, thank you, Amanda. The importance of students, right? And how important it is for the sector and how important this sector is for the economy here.
Bueno, pues a pesar de que no, respondiendo la pregunta que nos hicieron en el chat, que era acerca de qué pasa si viaja un estudiante con una vacuna no autorizada por el gobierno australiano, la realidad es que todavía no se tiene no tenemos una certeza de qué es lo que va a suceder, no hay un plan de acuerdo a estas estudiantes con vacunas no aprobadas. Sin embargo, se está estudiando para que los estudiantes realicen la cuarentena en sus casas y no en hotel, que sabemos que es algo que en un principio afectó a algunos de nuestros estudiantes en Canadá. Se está viendo la manera que sea en casa, no en hotel. Y repito nuevamente, pues no hay una certeza porque se siguen estudiando estos programas pilotos. Sin embargo, todas las declaraciones como las que se ven en pantalla que han hecho los gobiernos australianos, pues han sido en favor de la industria y en favor de los estudiantes internacionales.
Thank you. And I have just one more, and I'll just, it's just around South Australia and some of the comments there. And I see some of your questions popping up in the Q&A. I'll answer some of those throughout, and I've got a list of vaccines and dates, and etc. that I can share with you there. Similarly to what we're looking at for New South Wales, again, very important, the government of South Australia coming and the Premier, Stephen Marshall, being very strong about the importance of international students for the economy, also the multicultural aspect of the Australian community and the importance of students being part of that. As I mentioned, and as Milado just mentioned as well, there's also the pilot program for home quarantine. And that's an important step towards bringing students back in a more welcoming manner once those are approved. Overall, and I see some of the questions popping up. We don't have specific dates. The government doesn't have yet very specific dates, specific costs for everything, and part of this is going as the making it as it is going. For now, for the pilot program, the costs of quarantine will be covered by the providers, by the education providers, not by the students. They only cover the students will only cover the cost of flights. Okay, but that's for the pilot programs. We still don't know what's going to happen when borders are open more fully and what the procedures will be. But this is a good indication of where things are going.
Sin duda es una buena indicación de hacia dónde van las cosas. Nuevamente tenemos noticias positivas para South Australia, que es donde está nuestro campus de Adelaide. No hay aún una fecha de cuándo comienza el programa piloto. Todavía no se tiene una fecha. Y sobre los gastos de cuarentena, algo importante que mencionaba Lucas es que el programa piloto hasta el día de hoy, los gastos de cuarentena los estaba cubriendo la escuela por el programa piloto hasta el día de hoy. No sabemos si más adelante esto pueda llegar a cambiar. Amanda, ¿quieres comentar algo más?
It's just that for the pilot program in New South Wales, we already have a date. It starts on the first week of December.
Okay. Entonces, para South Australia comienza el 1 de diciembre también. Buenísimo.
And I'll pass on to Amanda. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Lucas. Thanks, ladies. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today. As we can see so far, there's a lot of good news and a lot of things that we actually got from official speech and announcements from the Prime Minister here in Australia. So I'm talking to you guys today from Sydney as well, same as Lucas. And we do watch the news every single day, 3-4 times a day, to give you guys this fresh news And I know that the girls in Mexico and Colombia have been sharing this as well. So this is the national plan. I don't know if many of you have seen this before, but right now we are on phase A. So phase A is the beginning of the whole plan, moving into phase B, C, and D is when everything will be back into normal, but we can see international students coming back on phases B and C, which I'm gonna just show you guys here in a second.
Bueno, entonces, para todos, este es el Plan Nacional de Reapertura en Australia. Este plan es oficial, o sea, fue compartido por el gobierno australiano. Amanda nos compartía que ellos están muy pendientes de qué está pasando constantemente en Australia, viendo noticias, y afortunadamente últimamente hemos tenido muy buenas noticias. Así que para todos el plan consta de 4 partes, A, B, C y D. En este momento estamos en la fase A del programa y esta fase, digamos que es la que pronto va a transicionar a la B. Qué buena noticia hay para nosotros, que en la fase B ya se ven los estudiantes internacionales considerados. Entonces, esto significa que una vez superemos esta fase y una vez completemos el porcentaje de vacunación del cual ya nos va a hablar Amanda, podremos considerar a los estudiantes internacionales para que vuelvan a Australia. Para que se hagan una idea, en la fase D ya volverá toda la normalidad. Es ya cuando el 100% de la población esté vacunado y cuando ya, digamos, volvamos a una situación completamente normal. Entonces, vamos por buen camino y es muy bueno que nos estén considerando en las fases tempranas, como lo son la fase B y la fase C.
So here in phase B, you guys can see that they will allow capped entry of students and economic visa holders subject to quarantine arrangements and availability. And this is what Lucas was explaining before, that now on, well, not now, but you guys will see that we are really close to phase B actually. This allow capped entry of students is exactly about the pilot programs that will start happening in New South Wales and South Australia within the next couple of weeks.
Entonces, acá vemos un zoom hacia la fase B del proceso, y en esta fase vemos cómo ya se incluyen los estudiantes internacionales, sobre todo estudiantes que ya tienen una visa, que todos sabemos que tenemos estudiantes que ya tienen la visa pero que no han podido viajar, y también implica pues lo que hablamos anteriormente de South Australia y New South Wales, que es donde está Adelaide y donde está Sydney, para quienes estos nombres son un poquito confusos.
So on phase B that we just saw, they will allow capped students, right? So they are actually allowing students to come pieces by pieces. On phase C, which is 80% of vaccination, they will increase those capped entry of students, which means they will allow even more students to come here. Probably on the new arrangements, as Lucas mentioned before, not having to stay into hotel quarantine, but being able to stay and do a self-isolation at home, which is going to be much better in terms of cost for those students.
Listo, y en la fase C, que es cuando ya se complete un 80% de la vacunación en el país, se aumentará la cantidad de estudiantes que podrán volver al país. Y además de esto, como decía Lucas anteriormente, los estudiantes no tendrán que hacer la cuarentena, pues esperamos únicamente en hoteles, sino que también se están evaluando distintas alternativas en casas de familia, lo cual para los costos, que sé que es algo que a todos nos tenía muy preocupados anteriormente, pues va a ser muy favorable y que va a hacer que este proceso pues sea una realidad para nuestros estudiantes.
So now, when will this happen? So this is, everyone is looking for a date. And so based on the quantity of people that actually had their first vaccines already in Australia, and those that actually booked their vaccine already, the trend is that we will reach 70% of vaccinated people by the 27th of October, and we will reach 80% of vaccinated people in Australia by the 12th of November. And this is the reason why New South Wales and South Australia, which is Sydney and Adelaide, already have their pilot programs in place. because we already have the trend of the vaccine dates. So they were able to estimate the dates that when they will be able to open the borders. And that's also the reason why the Prime Minister mentioned 100% that international borders will be open by Christmas. We still don't know if that international borders opening by Christmas mean freely travels and all of that, because also we need flights, right? We need all the companies operating flights here and there. But at least now, based on the trend of the vaccine bookings, we already have dates until the 12th of November to be achieved with 80% vaccinated.
Bueno, entonces básicamente en este gráfico lo que podemos ver es la tendencia de vacunación. Esto es muy importante porque digamos que estos números se sacan de la cantidad de personas que han sido vacunadas con la primera dosis y la cantidad de personas que ya han agendado su cita para la segunda dosis. Según estas tendencias, se espera que para el 27 de octubre de este año ya el 70% de la población esté vacunada y, como nos dijo Amanda anteriormente, con el 70% de la población vacunada, se espera que entre en acción la fase B del plan de apertura de fronteras y se espera que para el 12 de noviembre el 80% de la población esté vacunada. Cuando digo esté vacunada es con las 2 vacunas. Y entonces, por consiguiente, alrededor del 12 de noviembre se estaría entrando en acción la fase C del programa de apertura de fronteras. También nos comentaba Amanda que es por esta razón y con estos números que, como vemos, pues son oficiales y son las cifras que ha publicado el gobierno, que se espera que para Navidad se abran las fronteras. Si bien no nos han dicho que las fronteras van a estar abiertas un 100% para todo tipo de viajeros, la ventaja que tenemos es que sabemos que los viajeros pues que viajan con fines educativos van a poder entrar dentro de esta fase, dentro de este nuevo plan de apertura del país.
So what does Study Australia say? I know there's a lot of questions in regards to being able to apply for the visas. And we had a seminar, a conference with English Australia a couple of weeks ago. And we were told by Home Affairs that yes, offices offshore are being able to process visas. So Study Australia says that those students that already have their visa granted will have the priority on returning into Australia. So if you guys have any students that want to apply for their visas, we are recommending everyone to apply from April forward, but they can already apply, and those with a visa granted will have priority into coming into Australia.
Entonces, acá lo que nos está diciendo Amanda es que las personas que ya tengan su visa aprobada, definitivamente sabemos que van a tener prioridad a la hora de viajar a Australia. Y esto me parece muy importante también que lo comuniquen ustedes a sus estudiantes, porque sabemos y lo vivimos día a día con ustedes, que los estudiantes están muy inquietos en cuanto a cuál será la fecha en la que podrán viajar a hacer su programa. Entonces es muy importante que compartan esta información con ellos, que compartan el plan de vacunación. Nos está diciendo Amanda que nosotros sugerimos que las fechas de inicio se reserven a partir de abril del 2022. En caso que el estudiante pueda viajar antes o le den la visa antes, pues podría hacerlo antes, pero definitivamente las personas que ya tienen una visa en sus manos van a tener prioridad a la hora de viajar.
So what does ILSC offer for those students? We do have, of course, all the classes happening in all of our campuses. We have hybrid opportunities for students. We have online classes and we have face-to-face classes. Most of our campuses with face-to-face classes, we already have activities happening as well. But most important, we do offer all of our online courses for students to start studying it from offshore. So if you guys already have students that want to start their courses before coming to Australia, they can join into our online schedules. And we have general English classes, we have pathway courses classes, if they have plans to do maybe a Greystone College course after, or going into one of our pathway partners after, so they can start their courses from their home country, from Colombia, from Mexico, from Argentina, from wherever that is. Or in my case, will be from Brazil, for example. So they can join any of our classes that we offer it online from their home country. So that means that once they arrive in Australia, they will already speak English, right? Because they will be studying for a while. So they have better job opportunities, and they can also maybe just jumping into the college that they will do after their English courses. So all of those courses that we have at the moment, students can join from home, or they can already register to join those courses from whenever they start their studies here in Australia.
Bueno, entonces antes de traducirles lo que nos acaba de decir Amanda, les vamos a poner una nueva encuesta. En esta queremos preguntarles acerca de los cambios de destino. Sabemos que hay estudiantes que están cambiando de destino y nos gustaría saber hacia qué país están moviéndose estos estudiantes. Entonces, les dejo la encuesta por ahí mientras yo hablo. Entonces, en este momento, en ILSC se están ofreciendo las clases en Australia, las clases en el campus y actividades en el campus, también algunas clases híbridas con una mezcla entre presencial y online. Y también es muy importante pues que todos sepan que tenemos nuestras clases online. Recordemos que el part-time online está desde $100 semanales. Tenemos clases online de Pathway, de cursos de inglés, el part-time online. Y también incluso tenemos programas BET online para que todos nuestros estudiantes puedan aplicar. Les queremos también decir que, pues por ejemplo, una ventaja que tienen los estudiantes al empezar el curso de inglés en offshore, o sea, en Colombia, México, desde el país desde el que ustedes se estén conectando, es que van a tener mejor preparación a la hora de llegar a buscar un trabajo a Australia o a la hora de simplemente convivir en Australia cuando sea el momento del viaje. Les voy a mostrar por acá rápidamente los resultados de la encuesta y ya Amanda puede seguir con la siguiente diapositiva.
So, preguntas.
Entonces, bueno, vamos a empezar a leer las preguntas y nos van respondiendo Amanda o Lucas, quien prefiera. Entonces, ¿cuándo inicia el programa piloto en Adelaide? Is it okay if I ask in Spanish? Yes, okay. So go ahead, whichever you want, you can answer.
So the pilot program in New South Wales, it will start now in the beginning of December. As Lucas was explaining before, we will have 250 students entering Australia every 2 weeks, so every fortnight. So we will have 500 students per month coming into Australia. Lucas, do you know if South Australia will start on the average date, same as New South Wales?
No, I don't have the complete details for the South Australia program yet. And I was speaking to Jen yesterday about this. Jen is our director in Adelaide, and she's really well connected with the South Australian government there as well. And the final numbers are not finalized yet.
Ok, entonces en respuesta a la pregunta de María José, el programa piloto en Adelaide inicia, esperamos a principios de diciembre. Y en cuanto al de South Australia, que es Sydney, no tenemos fechas. Estamos, la verdad, muy bien conectados con el gobierno para saber cuándo van a ser estas fechas, pero desafortunadamente de Sydney aún no tenemos respuesta.
Just saw a question from Karina Gonzalez asking if they can apply for visas. Yes. As I shared one of the slides, Study Australia says that yes, people can already apply for their visas, and whoever has the visa approved will have a priority into returning into the country.
I think that answers Alejandra's question as well.
Sí, entonces para responder las preguntas de Karina y Alejandra, pueden aplicar en este momento a visas, no hay necesidad de esperar. De hecho, es buena idea ir aplicando para que vayamos quedando en la lista de espera para que nos resuelvan pues, las visas a medida que van entrando cuando ya vuelvan a empezar a aprobar visas.
Just a comment here, looking at most of the questions. Look, there's a question here by Anonymous. When are the frontiers, the borders opening? That's the $1 million question, and we don't have an exact date, and also we don't have the exact date of how the borders are going to open. So I just want to make that very clear as well, that we're looking at the national plan for the COVID response, and what that is showing us, and as Amanda explained, stage B, stage C, and then stage D, when we'll have all the restrictions for international inbound travels lifted. So we don't have the exact dates, and we're not saying that in December all students will be allowed in. Obviously there'll be different priorities, and the government is still working through that plan. But what is important is, yes, visas can be applied, and you can students can already apply for their visas and start planning, because that is happening, and that is happening soon, be it in December or early parts of next year. But we are confident now that this can happen very soon.
I can see questions from Jose y Pablo for how long the visa is taking. So as I shared with you guys, we had this seminar with English Australia about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And we had a special person talking about the visa processes and everything. So what is happening in Australia right now in terms of the visas is that they do receive about 5,000 visas requests a day for exemptions. Those exemptions, what does that mean? It means people that are outside Australia, they want to return to Australia, and people that are in Australia and want to leave Australia. So because of those requests, they have taken everyone that work with visas and put it into analyzing those requests. And that's why visas are taking a little bit longer to be processed. I saw some people said 8 months, 6 months. How long is it taking? We don't have the exact answer, but what we do know is Australia is telling people to, yes, apply their visas now. And yes, visas processes are taking a little bit longer than expected due to the lack of people to actually work on all those exemptions.
Exacto. Entonces, básicamente lo que nos estaba diciendo Amanda y Lucas antes es que en este momento se puede aplicar a visas. Amanda nos dio un dato muy interesante, y es que en este momento cada día se están aplicando 5,000 visas diarias a nivel global para Australia, y todas estas visas se están agrupando en distintos grupos para analizar pues cada uno de los perfiles. Entonces por eso puede que estén tomando un poco más de tiempo, pero definitivamente el gobierno australiano está impulsando a las personas a aplicar a las visas en este momento. También antes nos decía Lucas sobre la fecha exacta de apertura. No tenemos una fecha exacta de apertura, sabemos que van a abrir, y por lo menos sabemos que los estándares, pues como que las fechas de apertura se van a determinar dependiendo del porcentaje de personas vacunadas. Y esto ya es mucho, porque antes no sabíamos nada, antes no sabíamos cuáles eran las variantes, a qué punto teníamos que llegar para poder empezar a darle buenas noticias a nuestros estudiantes. Entonces este es un gran diferencial, porque ya no es un no sabemos, sino al menos podemos mostrar este plan nacional de apertura.
And Amanda, I don't know if you want to comment. There are a few questions there around when to book the courses, and I think you might want to
Sure.
address some of these.
Sure, and there's also one here about COEs as well. So yes, we are issuing COEs for students. So whenever you guys apply for the letter of offer and the whole process that you're really familiar with, once you request the COE, we will issue it. And we are suggesting that the students book from April. So it's not just April, but from April, May, June, July, whenever the students want to come, but from April. That doesn't mean if by any chance tomorrow, fingers crossed, the government says, oh, students can come back in January, we can change everything. That's not a problem. But our suggestion will be from April because of everything that I've just explained, especially on the timing of the visa processes as well.
Creo que esta también es información valiosa y responde muchas de las preguntas que he estado viendo. Estamos aconsejando a nuestros estudiantes comenzar a partir de abril del 2022. Esto no significa que si por alguna razón la frontera para los estudiantes internacionales se llegara a abrir antes, esto podemos hacer los cambios, sin embargo, aconsejamos a partir de abril de 2022. Sí estamos emitiendo COEs de la manera regular como los estábamos emitiendo, entonces pueden comenzar a enviar sus aplicaciones, nuestro equipo de registros los va a recibir, solicitan sus COEs, comenzar con los trámites de visa y bueno, la manera que ya lo estábamos haciendo para abril de 2022. Amanda, por cierto, estoy viendo otras preguntas y es respecto a estudiantes que ya tenían su visa aprobada y se les venció.
Okay, this is a little bit tricky because we are school, we're not an agency, so we don't really talk about visa application. But the information that we have is that there's a few situations that the students can actually request for a new visa with Australia for those visas that were affected by COVID-19. So these are the news that we actually see here and the information that we receive. So my suggestion is going to the Australian immigration website, and there has all the information in regards to students that were affected by COVID-19 onshore and offshore and had some problems with their visas. I know there's a few extensions, there's new applications in place, there's a lot of benefits in regards to visa. There's even some fees that they've been waiving, but we as a school, we cannot give you 100% of that information because we don't apply for visas. But I'm happy to simply just Google the link where you guys can have that info as well.
Exacto, es un poco difícil para nosotros responder esta pregunta porque no tenemos la 100% de la información respecto a visas. Sin embargo, podemos compartir y enviarles junto con la grabación y la presentación de este webinar el link del gobierno acerca de el soporte que da para los estudiantes offshore que aplicaron a visa y ahí pueden encontrar toda la información.
Yeah, I just popped in the.
Yeah, Lucas, go for it. No, go for it.
Yeah, 2 links there. So one from you, one from Amanda, one for the Home Affairs on student visas, and one from TGA for the list of vaccines. We've been asked a few times here now. Just a comment on, there's another question around if the pilot program applies to vet students as well. No, they don't, not at this stage. So the pilot programs at this stage apply to higher education, so university students and at higher level university students. So it will start with PhD students, returning PhD students who are about to conclude their courses. And then it will start to slowly trickle down to lower qualification, higher level qualifications, and then down to vocational, which is also higher education, and then English. But by the time it gets to that, we expect that borders will be open in a more in a more wider manner.
If I can just jump in here as well, I can see Indira asked about the percentage of people vaccinated to allow people in Australia. So one of the slides that we've talked about, it showed the projection, right? So the whole idea, hopefully people will go into their second vaccination booking on date. And the whole idea is that we will have 80% of vaccinated Australians by the end of November. And that's why the news about international travels are being shared from December, because they believe that by the end of November, we will have 80% of vaccination rate here. Indeed, if you have more questions about vaccination rates, feel free to just shoot an email and I can help you finding the information.
Sí, básicamente lo que nos está diciendo Amanda es que en respuesta a la pregunta de Indira, estimamos que para noviembre, mediados de noviembre, ya tengamos el 80% de las personas vacunadas y que, como dijo el primer ministro, para diciembre ya puedan empezar a viajar las primeras personas. Hemos estado respondiendo algunas de sus preguntas en el chat. Vamos a tener 2 minutos más de respuesta de preguntas. Después vamos a finalizar esta sesión y nos pueden continuar haciendo las preguntas a nosotras por WhatsApp o por correo y ya nosotras se las enviaremos a Lucas y a Amanda porque para ellos es la 1 de la mañana. Así que muchas gracias por estar acá en este momento con nosotros. 2 de la mañana, sí, perdón.
Casi las 2 de la mañana. But in reality, we really don't mind. What we really want is to actually give you guys the right information that we are receiving here. And it's really important as well, Lucas being part of the English Australia Board of Directors, to share this information with you guys. And whenever you have extra questions or anything, you can always let us know.
Yes, and just on that note as well, just remember we don't have all the answers. We also have our own questions. And Amanda's flipping there. But I think overall, why we're very happy, all of us here, to put this webinar together and chat with you guys, is where this is going and the importance and the recognition of international students and the importance of international students for the economy, but also for the community and how the community is happy and ready to welcome international students back. And I think that's a very important aspect of it. As someone who came into this country as an international student, as most of us, I recognize this as well. So it is a very happy moment for us where we can see this trend and things starting to change, and we can see that light at the end of the tunnel. With good news from different states and federal government as well. So I think that's the most important aspect of what we wanted to share with you guys. Yes, a few details are not clear yet, but things will become clear as we move along, and most importantly, we'll be able to welcome our international students back into the country very soon.
Gracias, Lucas. Vemos también muchas preguntas respecto a visas, que no tenemos una certeza 100% sobre todo del tiempo de respuesta de la visa. Como ustedes saben, no hay un histórico, realmente todo está cambiando. Y también vemos algunas preguntas respecto a la cuarentena de los estudiantes. En cuanto tengamos toda esta información, o sea, tengan por seguro que ILSC va a compartirles todo lo que los estudiantes necesitan para que los estudiantes puedan viajar. Por lo pronto, no nos queda más que compartirles estas buenas noticias, la intención que tiene el gobierno australiano de recibir estudiantes internacionales, la intención que tiene ILSC de recibir estudiantes internacionales, y que en Colombia, Katy y Juanita y yo en México, pues estamos para responder todas sus dudas. Los invitamos a que sigan enviando sus aplicaciones para nuestras escuelas. Está el equipo de registros en destino que nos está apoyando también para emitir los COEs y comenzar los procesos de la visa. ¿Hay algo más que queramos decir antes de terminar, Katy?
Yo quiero hacer algo súper rápido, y es que, por ejemplo, para las personas que tienen estudiantes que ya se les venció la visa y quieren aplicar al beneficio de visa que está dando el gobierno, por favor contacten a nuestro equipo de registros. El correo es el mismo de siempre, latin.australia@ilsceducation.com, que vi un par de preguntas relacionadas con esto. Ya estoy dejando el correo en las preguntas.
No, yo creo que agradecerles de nuevo, de verdad, por todo ese apoyo, por estar siempre con nosotros, porque van siempre a nuestras reuniones, obviamente a Lucas y Amanda por haberse conectado a la madrugada y estar con nosotros para darles estas buenas noticias. Yo creo que no es más sino decirles gracias de verdad por todo el apoyo que hemos tenido durante todo este tiempo. Y ya saben que las tres estaremos súper pendientes por todas esas preguntas y detalles que necesiten. Y obviamente si es algo que nosotras no sabemos, pues obvio contactaremos a Lucas y Amanda para poderles dar respuesta. De nuevo, muchísimas gracias.
Thanks, everyone.
Gracias. Hasta luego.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. And we talk soon. And we hope to welcome you guys here as well anytime soon.
Sí.
Yes.